we're turning our attention to hurling, and we also want to talk about this. It's the Don't Cook Yourself campaign from the Marie Keating Foundation, trying to raise awareness around the dangers of melanoma skin cancer this summer, particularly amongst men. Even on your staycation this summer or while you're outside in the garden, you have to take care. Ireland has one of the highest death rates from melanoma in Europe, and the rate of cases is on the increase. Eddie Brennan is an ambassador for the Marie Keating Foundation, and he joins us now. Eddie, good morning to you. How are you doing?
Morning, Ger. How are you doing?
This is obviously something that we should all be a little bit aware of. I know myself from sitting in the garden that I kind of have to be nagged to put on some sunscreen, but you start reading about this thing, stuff like this from the Marie Keating Foundation, you think, okay, well, actually, I kind of need to pay attention to this.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you said it there about the highest, we're actually the second highest in Europe. So I think if people were in Ireland were to sit up and say, listen to that and say, well, how is that? Because we certainly don't probably see the level of sun that we would normally associate with. I think we associate sun cream with going to the continent on holidays and putting it on because it is that warm over here. So I think it's possibly a level of awareness that's not there at the moment. I'm involved with the Marie Keating Foundation on this camp the last 3 years, and just something that I suppose is maybe, it clicks with me a little bit because from my own youth and that, you were on a farm and sometimes the weather was really, really warm and, there wasn't a sign of sunscreen in sight. That's probably the biggest thing. But for me, look, when you see the figures and when you see the stats, you're kind of going, that's something that jumps out at you a little bit. And maybe there's a lot of people in Ireland, maybe on days that it's a bit overcast, but it's really warm. I think the dangers are exactly the same then as when the sun is shining. So we definitely probably have to open the minds a small bit more to it. And like you said there, Ger, I think the majority of Irish men are the ones that have to be nagged cream. So from what I know of it since I joined, is just even to put on in the morning, it's some form of protection anyway, and particularly looking at it, be it the golf or the outdoors or whatever over the last few months, because the month of April into May was phenomenal when we were all off on the initial stages of the COVID.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the advice as well from Marie Keating is 90 minutes, about the length of a football match, is about the time when you should update it again. So no harm to go again. You mentioned about being outdoors. Like as an inter-county manager, are you down helping out with the club? Are you going to matches? What's your access to watching and being involved in games at the moment?
It was just more, I suppose, when the gates were opened in terms of bringing the guys back to the clubs. It was just back with the trying to organise maybe under nines, and that was late enough. It was probably the start of the end of June into July was when that phase kind of opened up. So it was just back with the under nines in the club, and obviously with the county, it was just maybe a bit of contact with the lads, checking in with them, making sure that they were kind of keeping tipping away. And after that, then look, over the weekend, their club matches kicked off in Laois and around the country. There's been some brilliant stuff to watch on television, but also, being able to get there and see a couple of matches live there. It's just getting back into the routine of things. And for me personally, I think I found it's hard to get into it because when you're preparing for a year ahead, you kind of set your routine days that you're going training, and you'll have your little tasks that need to be done on a daily basis. Whereas now, all that it's just on hold, and there's not much you can do. But I suppose it's getting to the point now where, all going well, that you're kind of starting to, put all the things in place to get going, because when and if it does go ahead, I think it's going to be flat to the mat for a couple of weeks. But yeah, just keeping tabs on the club scene, keeping tabs on stuff like that is as much as it is at the moment in terms of county.
There's been a few thought-provoking pieces from various journalists and commentators saying that the club players, there's a piece today, John Fogarty saying this is halcyon days for club players, and will they ever be able to go back to the scenario that they've had in previous seasons? You've obviously seen both sides of this in recent years. It does seem that the club players are really enjoying being front and centre, and the TV cameras and the reasonable weather, not great weather, but reasonable weather for both hurling and football. And you can see how, if this was, if you are a club player and your sport is hurling, that actually playing championship matches in summer with a dry sod and a good ball, that's kind of what you want, right?
Yeah, it's a huge novelty. It's something that probably more than ever now. I think if this is not the catalyst for sorting out our calendar, I think nothing will. You know, we all know the place that the county has. It's definitely the show pony in terms of, you know, commercialism and all that kind of stuff. And I think we all understand that it's the one that captures the imagination. But equally, if not more, you know, the club scene has really, you know, made its statements this year, I think, and it's, you know, it's circumstance over control. But to be able to sit down on, you know, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night and say, you know, county club matches will I watch, you know, Glen Rovers and Finbars the other night. You know, you got a real spectacular free-flowing game of hurling. You know, there's matches going on in Kilkenny. So there's loads of stuff to watch, and I definitely think, you know, more than ever, the difference with county and club hurling from a player's perspective, in my opinion, is that when you get back to your club, like that high pressurized situations, and again, pressure is part of what's, I suppose, enjoyable about county too, of performing on the big days. When you get back to the club, you can kind of, you know, that same pressure to be at training, you know, an hour beforehand or whatever else it is. It's just a little bit more pure hurling in that you can go and hurl, you can just go and let fly. You mightn't specifically have, you know, a very distinct role that you're kind of somewhat limited. You know, you have a job to do for the team, and we understand that. But I suppose when you get back to your club, you can really, really, you know, the pressure is off. You can let fly. You can really go and enjoy your hurling. And for the county guys this year, I mean, what a summer it's been. I think the downside has been that unfortunately the crowds haven't been able to enjoy it. They'll have to, you know, watch it online.
I mean, it does pose a lot of questions, like how do we keep this, but also at the same time make sure that we still have high quality inter-county matches? Is it possible that we can have the best of both worlds?
It's hard to know really, because there's obviously a lot of stakeholders involved, and certainly look, having, you know, wearing the inter-county managers, you know, you get that. But unfortunately, you know, to find that, I think we have to get all the people involved around the table and look at it. And I sometimes always look across at maybe the rugby one. And again, I don't know it, you know, that well, but there seems to be different segments of the year where they're with their clubs or where they're with their province, and then they're with the international setup, and there seems to be, you know, that seems to be managed a little bit better. So in terms of that, I think, you know, there's no reason why we can't maybe break down the year a little bit, you know, put in different competitions at different times. And I think the GA have to be very firm with this, or the powers that be it clubs and different things. And I think if you're going to offer a county manager, say, listen, you have 6 weeks to prepare your team for that championship, or 2 or 3 matches, grand. There is then a break of 2 weeks, and you're not allowed, you know, you can monitor injuries, but there's no collective training or something like that. So they're back with their clubs and let them go enjoy the club scene, because I think that club month started in, I mean, maybe the thought behind it was well, you know, well intentioned, but it certainly wasn't anything, you know, because training camps, there was different things going on. So I think you just have to bring everyone in around, and it's a level playing field for everybody if that's the situation. But I think we see, you know, some people have spoken about, you know, heard Michael Duggan saying about the, you know, the inter-county thing. Obviously, enough competition being what it is, you look at what the winners are doing and say we have to surpass what they're doing. So if they start training on the 24th of November, well, we'll have to go to 24th of October. And it's just, I think the demands being placed on inter-county players are going through the roof. So in that regard, I think having a healthy balance will be good. I mean, there's no reason why even in the middle of the summer you can't be playing provincial, you know, championships over a couple of weeks, take a break, and then go up to the next phase. But I suppose some counties have the whole situation with dual counties, and that just makes it very difficult to manage.
Yeah, I think you're dead right. One last question on this before I move on. Has this changed how you deal with your players as an inter-county manager, or if, you know, if you're going to have a long-term future involved at inter-county level, about what you would ask from your players? And is that different from what you would have been asked of when you were playing?
Possibly. I think the whole lifestyle side of it has definitely changed. There's no wriggle room kind of for lads to have a little bit of downtime. And again, I know, look, we're looking at professional sportsmen. They seem to have a good balance in that they don't have to work either. So I suppose that's the way it is in professional sports. But I personally, I think there's too much training going on from the county side of it. I think for me now, looking at what's coming down the tracks in terms of the Laois versus Dublin, you have a window, and that's the way it is, and you have to deal with that. I suppose we don't into the whole situation of the pandemic that's at play, because I think obviously everything hinges on what happens with that. But I just think if you're, I think all anybody wants, players and management, is you set down, this is what you have, and you build your plans around that. And I just think definitely the level, the amount of training that's required, and some counties, look, when you build up 3 or 4 years of good conditioning, that carries itself from one year into another. But if you're a team that's trying to bridge that gap, you have to do a little bit more. You have to buy into that lifestyle. And I think the modern day county player is definitely training equally, if not harder, than some of our professional sports colleagues. Like, so I think the demands being put on them are more and more. It's brilliant to see that they're willing to do it, but I still think that there's far too much training going on, and I think it's something that maybe I've no doubt some county boards are struggling with that financially, but it's something that maybe we need to look at. Like, that we did bring in this closed season, but the closed season is, yeah, it's there, but how strictly it's been adhered to, and that I don't know. But I just do think we need to be, maybe look at that and try to tighten it up a little bit.
Is the current situation, Eddie, actually almost one way of finding a solution to that, where you have the club fixtures that have to go first, and therefore your time with the county is naturally restricted, and the amount of hours that you have to train then are also restricted?
Yeah, it is. I think it has been good in that regard. I think, if anything, it has afforded an opportunity to look at that, and I do think the people sit down with, I do know, Pádraig Fanning down in Waterford has been looking at the calendar year, and he has taken on maybe a body of work himself, looking at that, and you'd say, surely to God, we can put together a working group and bring in the people that are, the people that have a vested interest in this, and say it's within the GA's interest in doing this. Like, and I know maybe, presidents move on or different things, but I think it would be an unbelievable legacy for some GA presidents to have it on his as a legacy when he left, and said, look, we finally, once and for all, and again, there'll always be tweaks, there'll always be issues, and that's okay, but I think there should be a huge drive made to try to put together a proper calendar year. And I think if you were to turn around and get some former players involved, maybe get some inter-county managers involved, club guys. I mean, the club at the end of the day is what's going to be supplying our county teams in years to come. And I think the one thing you don't want to see, and I admittedly was, I suppose, vocal this and saying that perhaps the GPA and the powers that maybe didn't get stuck into this enough, and say what we don't want is everybody fighting with each other, because everybody wants to play, everybody wants to participate. And what you don't want is a situation where the club and the county players and club managers and county managers are fighting over heads in relation to this. And I just think if we can go and try build a calendar, and that will probably on an ongoing basis need to be tweaked from year to year. But this has given us, whether we like it or not, this has given us a great way of doing it. Say, look, there's the example of how it's done. We've had to do it. So if we had to do it and we have to make it work, then surely with a little bit of cooperation, we can fix that and put in place a good structure that might be functional for the year going ahead.
Yeah, and if it doesn't work, we'll change it. That's the other thing, is like to be open to change.
Yeah, I think so, Ger. I think this thing of kind of, sometimes with Congress, when they put in something, it's approved in April, and it's the following year before it actually comes into play, and then it takes another 3 years before that system is it's in for 3 years. I just think if in an ideal world, if we could sit down, build a calendar, and say, look, this is what's going to happen. This is 2021. Let's see how it goes, and we will see then after that. We'll review it on an ongoing basis, turn around and say, look, the B and C didn't work, right? We'll just tweak that a small bit and see if we can make it work. Look, nothing is going to be perfect, but I definitely think if you can keep people happy, all people involved happy, I think the players themselves will enjoy it. I think the players themselves are probably enjoying the fact that they're around the locality the whole time. They're able to go into their clubs a little bit more and still be able to go along and play an inter-county season over a shorter period of time.
Yeah, I think the common sense approach there makes a lot of sense, and hopefully this is an opportunity for everybody to learn from that as well.